You have just been handed the most powerful job in the empire, and the first thing you do with it is lie down on the floor, outside the emperor's bedroom door. Tonight, and every night for the rest of your career, you will sleep there, within arm's reach of the most dangerous man on earth, because your job is to be the last human being between him and everyone else. Nobles who own half the empire will bow to you in the morning. Generals will wait on your word. And none of it will ever make you emperor, because the very thing that won you this job is the thing that bars you from the throne forever. You are a eunuch. This is the story of the men who ran the Byzantine Empire from the doorway of its bedroom. They were mocked in the streets. They were the punchline of 1,000 jokes. And for centuries, they held the most sensitive jobs on earth, closer to power than any nobleman, any general, any prince. The empire trusted them with everything it had, and it trusted them precisely because of what had been taken from them. Start with the job itself. The most important position in the palace was the one that controlled access to the emperor, and the title literally meant the one who sleeps beside him. This man spent his nights on the floor outside the imperial bedchamber. Nothing reached the emperor without passing him. No message, no visitor, no petition, no threat. He tasted the emperor's food before the emperor ate it. He knew the emperor's secrets, his fears, his health, his plans, because he was there for all of it. In a system where being seen by the emperor was the single greatest prize a man could win, the man who decided who got seen held more power than the men who did the seeing. And around that one bedchamber, the whole palace worked the same way. The emperor's treasury, his wardrobe, his private letters, his body itself, all of it was handled by the same kind of man. These were not obscure posts. They were the most trusted officers in the government, and they were reserved by custom and by law for eunuchs. Now, here is the strange part. These men were not born to power. Most of them were bought. The empire had made castration of its own citizens a crime, so the palace imported its eunuchs from beyond its borders, especially from the Caucasus, where the trade in boys was old and organized. Some families did it to their own sons on purpose, hoping to buy a place in the palace, and the state kept having to ban that too. The operation itself was brutal, and it killed many of the boys outright. Those who survived lost everything a man was supposed to be, in exchange for a chance at a job in a building they might never leave. The church added its own rule. At the Council of Nicaea, it was decided that a man who castrated himself could never become a priest. The reasoning was that a man who would do that to his own body had rejected the natural order, and the church did not want such a man at its altar. And yet the same society that barred these men from the priesthood handed them the keys to the throne room. Why? What made a eunuch the one man an emperor could trust? Think about what an emperor is actually afraid of. Not the poor, not the peasants. The people who keep emperors awake at night are the powerful, the generals with armies, the nobles with provinces, the princes with claims. And every powerful man in the empire is a potential rival, because every one of them has a family, a name to build, sons to place on the throne. A eunuch has none of that. He cannot found a dynasty. He cannot pass anything on. His power is personal and borrowed, and it dies with him. So the emperor could hand a eunuch the keys to everything and sleep with the door open, because the man outside it was the one man in the empire who could never take his place. The most dangerous ambition in the world is ambition that can be inherited. Remove the inheritor, and you remove the threat. The proof of the system is in the careers it produced. In the 6th century, when the Emperor Justinian wanted to reconquer Italy, he did not send his finest noble general. He sent a eunuch named Narses, a palace official in his 70s, with no military record at all, and Narses destroyed the enemy army, took the capital, and governed Italy for years afterward. The empire gave one of the greatest military commands in its history to a man who could never dream of sitting on the throne, and that was exactly the point. He could be trusted with an army, because an army was the only thing he could ever win. The most striking case came in the 10th century, and it shows how deep the logic ran. The Emperor Romanos I had a son, a boy named Basil, and the emperor, to make sure the boy could never threaten the throne, had his own son made into a eunuch. He was cutting his own bloodline off from power. deliberately to protect his other sons. And here is the twist. The son he had cut down rose anyway. Basil became the one who sleeps beside, the keeper of the emperor's door, and for 4 decades emperors came and went while the eunuch stayed. The man who could never be emperor became the man who decided who would be. His father had removed him from the succession, and in doing so had given him the only job in the empire more powerful than the succession itself. Even earlier, in the empire's Roman days, there was Eutropius, a eunuch who rose so high that he was made consul, a title emperors themselves had worn. The city was scandalized. The greatest poet of the age wrote poems mocking him, and within a year he had fallen, and he was executed. That was the other side of the bargain, and it was just as reliable as the power. Because the same thing that made these men trusted made them disposable. A nobleman's power rests on his family and his lands, and both outlast him. A eunuch's power rests on one man's favor and nothing else. When the emperor died or the favor turned, there was nothing underneath. The fall was fast, and it was usually fatal. Exile, blinding, execution. The most powerful men in the empire were also the most fragile in it, and everyone knew it. So hold the two pictures together. On one side, the most trusted men on earth, sleeping at the emperor's door, tasting his food, guarding his secrets, commanding his armies. On the other side, figures of cruel comedy, mocked in the streets, cut off from family, from priesthood, from the throne, and from the future itself. The same society that made them untouchable also made them unable to touch anything. They were trusted because they had nothing, and they had nothing because they were trusted. If you want one reason the Byzantine Empire lasted 1,000 years, this is part of it. It built its government on men whose loyalty was built in, men with no other family, no other future, no other option. It is a brutally honest answer to a question every state faces, the question of who you can trust with power. And the Byzantine answer was this: give it to the people who can never keep it. He slept at the emperor's door every night of his working life. It was the most powerful spot in the world, and it was as far as he could ever go.